So now, as we move forward, what do we expect out of a Trump administration, and how is that going to affect all of you? Well, it's small solace, but we did call the Senate right. We said the Senate would go the same way as the White House, and that gives Trump a tremendous amount of power in Washington. He is the first president since the first 2 years of Obama's administration to have a Congress that is controlled by the same party. And that is a big deal, obviously, when you're trying to get things done in this polarized environment in Washington. Also, for the past 6 years, faced with a recalcitrant Congress, President Obama has operated largely by executive order. And he's made no bones about that. He said, if I can't get something through Congress, I'll do what I can outside of Congress. Well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And that means that a lot of what Obama's done, Trump can take away simply with the stroke of a pen. So those executive orders give Trump a lot of power. But there are two checks on Trump's power going forward. The first is the Senate filibuster rules. In order to pass most legislation in the Senate, you need 60 votes. If you have fewer than 60 votes, anybody can stand up, start talking, and stop legislation in its tracks. Obviously, the Republicans don't have 60 votes in the Senate. There's an important exception to that rule. And if you take away anything from the next 50 minutes, you want to take away this one word, and that is reconciliation. In Washington, reconciliation means something entirely different, of course, than what the rest of us think it means. Reconciliation is a procedure that's very arcane, but if you follow it, you can pass budget items, tax and spending items through the Senate with 51 votes. So you can bypass a filibuster on fiscal issues. You don't have to worry about it if you follow the reconciliation rules. And that gives Trump more power, as you'll see when we go through his various proposals. On the filibuster, one other point. The filibuster's not in the Constitution. It's not even in any law. It's a convention of the Senate that has existed for many, many years. Kind of paradoxically, the filibuster rules can be overridden with 51 votes in the Senate. And we saw this from the Democrats a few years ago. They were unable to get Obama's judicial appointments through because the Republicans wouldn't allow it. And so Harry Reid blew up the filibuster rule for the appointment of lower court judges, not for laws, not for the Supreme Court, but for the appointment of lower court judges. If Republicans get frustrated with inability to enact legislation, will they blow up the filibuster rule for the passage of laws as well? I don't think that will happen. McConnell is a traditionalist in the Senate, and there's a deep-seated view there. You may be in the majority today, but you're going to be in the majority at some point tomorrow. But that is something we want to keep an eye on the filibuster rules. The second check on Trump's power is the fact that Paul Ryan and the House leadership are deficit hawks. They are very concerned about the growth of the deficit. And many of Trump's policies would grow the deficit substantially. And I expect they're going to try to rein in some of the spending and tax proposals that Trump has. We'll have to see how that happens. So again, almost unilateral power for him, but Senate filibuster rules, exception for reconciliation, fiscal issues, and the deficit hawks in the House.